How's it going, guys? Kress here again today. I wanted to bring you a video regarding the best gem setups for a free-to-play Necromancer, and there will be a couple different variations depending on what kind of a player you are, and that's why I say setups. However, as a free-to-play player, we really don't have a lot of gem power to work with, so I recommend choosing one of these setups and sticking to it, rather than trying to have more than 6 legendary gems that you use and upgrade, because that will really spread out your gem power and kind of weaken you overall. And before I get into that, I did want to mention that 86.9% of my viewers have not yet subscribed, so if you have watched any of my previous videos and enjoy my content, please hit that sub button. It'll help me make more frequent content for you in the future. And getting into our gems here, this is the kind of best overall, I'd say, for most players. This is what you'll want to use, and I'll go into detail about why. But basically, we use Blood-Soaked Jade. This was recently fixed for Necromancer, allowing the damage to increase your summons damage, where previously that did not work. But even with the old version where the damage increase didn't affect your summons, I would still put this in the top tier for Necromancer, because it does give you 10% move speed, and that will help you in all areas of the game, improve your quality of life, make farming better, easier. You just can't go wrong. Even if all you use is a 2 out of 5 star at rank 1 and never upgrade it, I'd still consider it best in slot. And then, for our other 5 gems, I choose rank 5 2-star gems for the rest of your loadout. And the reason why is, because since this is an overall list, we want to have gems that give us resonance for PvP, have good effects in PvE, and increase our magic find. So this will give us 50% magic find, as well as per 2-star gem at rank 5, you get 150 resonance. So that's pretty good compared to using any 1-star gems, which I know a lot of free-to-play players are recommended to use. They give you much lower resonance, where you have to get it to rank 10 to have the same resonance as a rank 5 2-star, and it costs about 3 times as much gem power to get a rank 1, or to get a 1-star gem to rank 10. And the reason why we use Follower's Burden first is for Necromancer and all forms of PvE, summons are still definitely the best build. And to get the max bonus out of this, you need to have 6 summons active, which is very easy to do. Usually, you'll have 6 at all times, maybe you'll drop down to 5, but you'll always have a minimum of 4 because of your summon skeletons. They just revive themselves, usually don't die unless you're in hard content. Sometimes in harder content, they can die, and you might lose out on some of this bonus, but overall, still definitely the best 2-star gem for a Necromancer. Same goes for Bloody Reach here. As a Necromancer, it's very easy to stay out of range, because all you kind of do is throw your summons in, and then use your basic attack, which you can use at definitely 8 yards or more. Typically, you don't use any other skills with less range, stuff like Grim Scythe that they're always trying to push, for example, but that doesn't matter too much. Even if you are closer to the enemy, you still get a damage boost, just not as high, and it's still better than other 2-star gems. And then Cutthroat's Grin. This one's really good, because as a free-to-play player, typically your damage is lacking, and then Cutthroat's Grin at rank 5 will give you 13.5% increased critical chance when you're behind an enemy. So in stuff like raids and dungeons, where usually just trying to avoid enemy attacks, you'll kind of end up behind enemies anyway. And from what I can tell, it seems to work when you're kind of on the side of an enemy as well. So I think it's like a full 180 degree radius behind the boss probably that counts for that. And as a Necromancer, since you'll be using summons as well with the Shepherd set, you're already getting a lot of critical chance, so pushing that even higher is fantastic. Definitely use Cutthroat's Grin. And then, other than that, we don't have anything too stellar we can use on Necromancer, mainly because a lot of gems don't work with your summons, and a lot of the other 2-star gems are pretty, I'd say, unreliable or just not that good. And I have Abiding Curse here, as well as Curse Sling as a secondary option for the last or 6th gem. And I put these here because as a Necromancer in PvP, you're all about disrupting the enemies. Typically, you're not worried about dealing damage, and both of these 2-star gems are actually really good in PvP, despite all gem effects being reduced by 66%. Being able to slow attack or movement speed with Abiding Curse, or with Curse Sling blinding the enemy. Even at reduced durations, these effects are powerful and can really turn the tide and annoy your enemies. And then I have Fervent Fang here listed as well, mainly because currently it doesn't really work with your summons, and that you can build up the stacks with your Soulfire or your Bone Spear basic attack, but your summons will not build up the stacks. And I'm hoping that, like some of these like Bloodsoaked Jade, Seeping Bile type gems, where previously they didn't work with your summons and they've now been fixed to work with it. Fervent Fang, I'm hoping gets fixed to work with your summons, and that would make it excellent, maybe even better than Follower's Burden, since it's a lot easier to get more use out of than Follower's Burden, and you'd build the stacks up so fast. But even then, stuff like damage over time effects, so if you use Bone Spear with the poison, you can build up the stacks really fast for increasing single target damage. But it's a free gem, and if you're not worried about PvP, where Abiding Curse and Curse Sling are really good, I would just slot in Fervent Fang instead, since if you ever class change to a different class, Fervent Fang is definitely top tier across all classes, so you can't go wrong by slotting this in. And I'd only go for both Abiding Curse and Curse Sling if you're a player that you know you're going to be Necromancer the whole time, and you don't care that much about PvE type stuff. And now, getting into our second list, this is more for a player who maybe they're a light spender and they want to awaken a couple slots. If you are in that category, I would still say try to limit it to 2 1-star gems that you're awakening. Just because if you're using a full loadout of 1-star gems, your resonance is capped very low, to where anytime you play PvP, you're probably going to get crushed even if you have a lot invested in your gems. However, if you're a player who doesn't touch PvP and you don't care about it, or maybe you just play it like once a week when you're running a vault or something, and you never partake in the other PvP activities, then you wouldn't be at too much of a loss by going with 1-star gems, since a lot of their effects are better than 2-star gems, and gem effects do matter more in PvE for stuff like raids and dungeons. Stuff like farming and PvP gem effects don't matter, because PV, or like open world farming, there's no difficulty in that at all, and then in PvP the effects get reduced. But you can see here, we're still running Bloodsoaked Jade for the movement speed. Follower's Burden, still because summons are top tier in all PvE content, and then when you play PvP, even though you don't use summons in PvP, since your gem effects are reduced anyway, and you're not focused on dealing damage in PvP, it doesn't matter that we're not getting any effect out of this. Still using Bloody Reach, Cutthroat's Grin, of course, but then for our last 2 gems, where I would slot out the Abiding Curse and Curse Sling or Fervent Fang, I would slot in first Berserker's Eye, and I did want to touch on this a bit, because in my previous video, some people kind of disagreed with my take on Berserker's Eye, so I wanted to kind of explain it more for you guys. So at rank 10, of course, I believe it's like 15 or 16% damage increase, which is really good, and people have done math and it kind of adds to like 1 or 2,000 resonance worth of damage. However, that damage is only for PvE. So in PvP, the gem effect gets reduced. However, I'm not certain that the increased damage you take is reduced in PvP. So even at rank 10, it's worth about 5% of your damage is increased, but then you take 5% more damage in PvP. So spending a lot of gem power on that is really not worth it to me. However, if you are someone who maybe you spend a little bit and you want to awaken a slot, you definitely can't go wrong with this, as it will take you very far in PvE, and at least it's not a totally negative effect in PvP. And then for our second 1-star gem that we'd awaken, I'd probably recommend Freedom and Devotion. And the reason for that is, especially at rank 10, the increased summon duration you get work really well with your like your lava golem and your reapers, or even the normal skeletal mages, because it helps you stack even more of them to where your golem essentially has no cooldown. Anytime it dies, you can just resurrect it immediately. And then for stuff like your reapers and mages, you can easily get like 3 to 4 of those out at once when you have these increased durations. So I think that's a lot stronger than something like Everlasting Torment. But I did want to mention this because if you're someone who plays multiple classes, like I do myself, I'd rather go with a gem like Everlasting Torment, since that works a lot better on every other class, where Freedom and Devotion is kind of only for Necromancer. And then, getting into 5-star gem callouts here. These are for players where, if you're someone who, as a free-to-play player, you want to focus on getting your resonance as high as possible, that's when you'd want to start going for these gems. And as a free-to-play player, these are still attainable. However, there's definitely like a soft or even hard cap at around rank 4. Because rank 4, it is attainable for a free-to-play player. It might take a little while because you need 100 gem power and a gem duplicate for that rank 3 to rank 4 upgrade. But then rank 4 to rank 5 requires a lot of duplicates and gem power, to where you're essentially locked out from that magic find bonus at the rank 5. So, for Chip of Stone Flesh, since we are getting these 5-star gems mainly for PvP, this would be the best callout, as Necromancer typically uses the Fear version on their Wraith form, and that works really well with Chip of Stone Flesh. And then also we might get different essences in the future with either stuns or other fears. There is also a fear with the main hand weapon causing the bone spirits to fear. That's really good as well. Works well with Chip of Stone Flesh, gives you increased damage, and it's also one of the cheaper 5-star gems. I've seen 3 stars as low as like 40k platinum. So you could pick up either a 3-star, or maybe if you get a lucky pull on a 4-star off the market, like maybe someone listed it pretty cheap. Definitely really good. Get that to rank 3 or rank 4. And then my next call out here is Bottled Hope, mainly because the other 5-star gems, they really don't have that much for good effects in PvP for Necromancer, or anything you really care about. Bottled Hope, though, this effect's really good in PvE, because each time you buff your summons, so say with the Dark Curse, or with the Quills or other forms of bone armor, that's going to buff all of your summons attack speed and damage, and that's just really good. It'll really increase your DPS. It gives you a small bit of cooldown reduction as well, which could kind of help with different summon timings. And then even though you're not getting much use out of this in PvP, when you use bone armor on your allies, it will buff them with the Bottled Hope as well, so that's really good. Echoing Shade, this is another really good gem for Necromancer, because the clones that come out count as summons, so that'll work with stuff like your Shepherd set, and all of your other like summon damage increase, summons take less damage, stuff along those lines. So it synergizes really well with what you're already trying to do. And then since Necromancer's a range class as well, that's also where Echoing Shade shines, since they'll use either your Soulfire or the Bone Spear primary attack. And then I list Hellfire Fragment here. At this point, there's not really many other good gems for Necromancer, like nothing really stellar, I'd say. And then I put Hellfire Fragment here because it's on the cheaper side, and it's better than something like Zwenson's Haunting still, since you can get use anytime you use a skill rather than killing an enemy. And then Blood-Soaked Jade and Seeping Bile, of course, are best in slot. However, they're on the expensive side, usually selling for max price, as well as sometimes just being totally sold out. And anytime someone lists a 2-star version even, it's just bought off the market right away. But for a PvP player, Seeping Bile, definitely the highest top tier 5-star gem. That poison is just really brutal. And then Blood-Soaked Jade, of course, just all around best 5-star gem is you get damage increase and movement speed. Nothing you can go wrong with there. And that's about it for this video. I hope that helps and my explanations kind of make sense. If you do have any further questions though, just leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to reply and let you know what I think. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and peace!